Jooselord, I want to bring you two in the conversation. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing amazing.
Man, I was watching your face as you were watching yourself. Talk to me about what you were thinking and what was going through your mind.
Two things. One, you don't really remember the things that you say. So like when it comes back to me, I'm like, wow, I said that? That was my brain? And then the second thing was I had on Misfit socks, and the leader of the Misfits came out as a Proud Boy, so I regret wearing those socks. I threw those socks away. So I was looking at those socks like I will never wear those socks again.
Wow, that's a great transition. So the Moshpit Messiah, right? That's what your latest album is called. That's what kind of what you go by. Where does that name come from, Moshpit Messiah?
I got the name Moshpit Messiah from a pirate. If you like my music, I don't call you a fan. I feel like that's like below. I say that we're all pirates, that we all stand together in our stances. So together we're pirates. And one of the pirates, he came to me and he told me, he said, you bring so many different people from so many different lifestyles together, and they just wild out, like they go crazy, but they're healing in the process. He's like, you're like the Messiah of mosh pits. And I just was like, Messiah of mosh pits, that's good. I'm gonna use that.
That's a really good answer. In the video, you say this right here. Hip hop was born from struggle. When you're black, you're born in struggle. And on your song, Ad Vices, on your album, Moshpit Messiah, I think it's my favorite song on the record. I think so. You also allude to that. Break down that a little bit more for us about being born into struggle.
When you're black, you're born with an extra set of rules that you have to follow. And life is already hard enough. Every single decision you make can lead to like either greatness or failure. From what cereal you decide to eat, or if you decide to record yourself eating that cereal, like small things, they determine your path in life. And when you're black, you have all of those decisions, and then okay, well, you got a respectability politics. Like, okay, well, I have to look like this, I have to sound like this, I have to code switch, and all the different things that we are forced to do to make ourselves less black, just to be able to survive, like just to be able to keep our head above water, making the way when we can, keep the good times. You know what I mean? Yeah. So when that's what that means.
That's so interesting, the way that you break that down, because if you think about it, several generations of black people either born into bondage, born into black codes, vagrancy laws, right? Exactly what you're describing, or Jim Crow, right? Or as Isabel Wilkerson just looks at things when it comes to housing, James Crow, right? So it's interesting that you break it down similarly to that. W.E.B. Du Bois, in his book, Black Reconstruction, says something similar. He says this: in all cases, there was plain and indisputable attempt on the part of Southern whites to make Negroes slaves in everything but name. So getting to that point, there's a different set of rules, literally, that black people have to live by. So the fact that you still a young man and you see that, I think that's beautiful. Let's talk about when you moved to North Carolina from Harlem, right? Kaisha mentioned, she from Queens, you from Harlem. You had an incident around 12 years old, right? Talk about that incident and break that down for us.
A friend of mine, his name was Gerard. He's actually deceased now. We were walking back from the store. It was a Winn-Dixie, and that's how long ago it was, because Winn-Dixie is no longer in North Carolina, at least not in Durham or Raleigh. But we were walking back, as we did a bunch of times, and there was a bunch of police cars like flying past us, and we get right to the front of our house, like with grocery bags in our hand, and a cop pulls in, and that's the sound of the gravel. So he pulled in, and he hops out the car, and his gun is already out, and it's two 12-year-old boys, and he's like, where y'all coming from? We just came from the store, and they like, get on the ground, get on the ground, get on the ground. So he's got his gun pointing at us, making us get on the ground. And at that very moment, my mother, who doesn't drive, pulled up in a cab from Women's Empowerment, and she asked him what he was doing, and he didn't have an answer, so they left. And that's just what it is to be a young black boy. I didn't do anything different than what I had done 1,000 times before. I walked to the store every day, multiple times a day, the same store. But this time it was different because something happened, and apparently I fit the description because I was black, even though I was 12.
So that's interesting. You're describing an incident in the early 2000s, right? So if we think about the Great Migration, so you came from the North, came south. The Great Migration, 1915, 1970, black Southerners fled to go north, west, and Midwest. And in Isabel Wilkerson's book, The Warmth of Other Suns, I want to read this excerpt, and I want you to comment on it because it's a parallel to what you are describing. In the book, she writes about a man named George Starling, and she says this: every night, the violence came into George Starling's living room. He had been watching the nightly news, the grainy black and white images of colored teenagers standing up to Southern sheriffs, and he could see himself as a young man again, pressing against the barbed wall of the caste system of Florida. Sheriff's deputies were pounding the young people with fire hoses and beating them with batons. That was the South he left. He wondered if it would ever change. So here's a gentleman in 1963 recalling something from the early 40s. And then here you are in the early 2000s going through something similar. So my question is, similar to George Starling from the book, do you wonder if it will ever change?
I don't. I know it will change. It has to change. This can't be the existence of our people. This can't be just, oh, it just is what it is. At one point, slavery was what it was, and that's gone in some fashion, at least here in America. We can do it, and we will do it by any means. So, no, I don't wonder if it's going to stop, because I will do everything in my power to make sure that it stops in my lifetime. That's what I dedicate my life to.
Yeah, I love the intensity that we have right here. I wish people could be on the stage with you and feel that. It's kind of like one of your shows. So I want to talk about the Carolina Waves Black AF video cipher you did early this year in July. Shout out to Yaya Beat. Shout out to Mir I Am. This is how you start your verse off, Juice. You say, "Dear whites, can you hear us loud and clear, whites? Is this hip hop too much for you craft beer, whites? Holy cow, strangle them up, you stop and stare, whites. Mortal Kombat in the struggle, it's not their fight." Please break those bars down.
So when I say that, I say, dear whites, can you hear us loud and clear, whites? It's like straight in, as a people who go invisible until they're afraid of you. I know that when I came on the track, I came with a huge intensity, like a huge anger. It was the beat switch, everything. So I'm like, now I know you see me, because you see me when I walk down the street when you cross. So can you hear us loud and clear now? If you missed everything we said, you're gonna hear this. Then is this hip hop too much for you craft beer, whites? That breaks down into, hops is how you make beer. Craft beer and breweries, that like the emergence of like hundreds of breweries in an area, that is like a clear sign of gentrification, a clear sign. So when I say, is this hip hop too much for you craft beer whites? They like safe rap. I'm not a safe rapper. They love the oh, well, this guy's fun. They want the MC Hammers and stuff, but they don't want Juice. So is this hip hop too much for you craft beer whites? Holy cow, strangle them up. You stop and stare, whites. Basically, the police, they murder us on camera for the public to see, the same way they used to have public hangings. And people stopped and stared. They bought popcorn to go to public hangings. People stop and stare. They look all day. They'll share it, and they'll share it happily. So, holy cow, strangle them up. You stop and stare, whites. Mortal Kombat in the struggle. It's not their fight. Mortal Kombat in the struggle. The struggle is us fighting. Mortal Kombat is fighting. The other side, they fight the fight. They see us fighting to live. Like, all we're doing is fighting to live. We're saying, we just want to be alive. That's all we want. And they fight our fight. And it's because it's not their fight. It's no, I don't understand it, so I have a problem with it. So that's what that breaks down to.
Man, so much that you said there. I wish we could dig into every last piece of it. I want to talk about some Pew Research, a study, though, that was done in September. So in the United States, 55% of U.S. adults expressed they had some support for the BLM movement. That's down from 67% in July, sort of when a lot of this stuff was being blasted out everywhere. So that's interesting. So when you say, is this too much for you? I wonder about allyship. And then you talk about you have the Leave It to Beaver line. That's so clever. And you talk about how the typical white family doesn't have to care about black people. So I guess my question is, do you think most people who say they are allies actually care? Do they really care? What do you think?
I would say most no, but you like you're not gonna miss a real ally because they're willing to die just like we willing to die. They will risk it all because I was out there and I saw them like not afraid. I saw them like I'm getting emotional now. I saw them group around us, like protecting us. And as a person who's never felt protected, who felt like I had to protect myself and my people, to see white people, the people with the most power here in America, in the world, stand around us and say, I know you won't hurt us, and you gotta get through us to get to them, that's an ally, and they exist right around us, and they will go to war for us. They doing it right now in DC.
Yeah, I appreciate your candor about that. You're somebody who's been out there, as you say. So as we wrap up, if you had a message to the protesters, to the allies you say are out there, what would that be?
We are the instruments of change. When you wake up in the morning, everything you do, even nothing, affects things. So if you wake up and you say, I want to make a change, I'm going to go out and fight, you can go to sleep saying, I did something to help my people. Or you could stay at home and eat your cereal and watch TV and say, wow, that's crazy out there. And that's what you did with your life. People don't remember the person who sat and ate a cereal. They remember either the bad guys or the good guy. What you want to be.
Word up. Jooselord Mangas, thank you for joining us on Mic Check.
Thank you for having me.